Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer, Michael Hyson, aka Angelus, son of Abaddon. This morning, I'd like to discuss hexes and curses, or versus curses, I should say, into a much more in-depth area. After I had done the video last night, while sitting in my inner chamber, after a good little bit of a relaxation period and reflective meditation, I really couldn't relax after the video because I felt like there was just so much that needed to be discussed, from a personal nature to that of, say, for an example, different techniques of cursing, hexing, and things that karma does when it's involved. So today I'd like to discuss this. And I'll even go in and give you some references for you to follow on your own. Okay. Now, first of all, let's get into philosophy. Okay. In philosophy, there are many detailed works that describe karma and personalized curses. For an example, Sun Tzu in The Art of War says that to know your enemy is to know yourself. So, to know what your enemy is willing to do and capable of doing is to first understand what you're willing to do. Okay. How far are you willing to take it? Okay. This is by far the most thought provocative method of understanding yourself and your enemy's capabilities. It's like saying when you're far off, make your opponent think that you're close to them. And if you're close, make them think that you're further away than you actually are. It's a whole distance and closing ground. When we look at the JCI Bible, for an example, what was his name? He's a biblical prophet that started up right after Moses' death. Okay, he led the. I want to say it was James, or I can't think of the guy's name offhand, but basically the battle was said against the enemies of the Israelites was said to last forever. It was like time stood still. And this is because this leader, this elder, this spiritual leader took the army nonstop over a great distance up a cliff and attacked as the sun was coming up. If that doesn't describe a perfect method of understanding your enemy, how far they're willing to take it, I don't know what does. Okay. You consider to do something like that, it has to take great discipline, great focus, and a mentalism to beyond anything to prevail in your vanquishing of an enemy. In hexcraft, curses, cursing somebody, the more details that you put in, the more energy, chi, that you put into the working, be it expression magic, for an example, that of emotion, putting all that hatred, that anger in there, using verbal um, discipline, disillusion of dis- dehumanizing that enemy, visually seeing their world come down around them. Let them, you know what I'm saying? Destroy them through every means necessary. Okay. Now, every god and demon that I've ever come across and met through invocation and evocation that has made themselves present in my ritual workings, they've never told me to go out and destroy an enemy. They've taught me how to do it, but there's a difference. Now, and some of these curses are quite potent, poisonous even to the enemy. I've seen how they've destroyed somebody in less than 12 hours. I mean, I'm talking complete loss of life. I've seen how they've driven people insane. For an example, in Satanism, the highest law of a Satanist is self preservation, with the second being self gratification. Okay. Anything that brings the individual self gratification is all good as long as it doesn't violate the highest and number one law, which is self preservation. So look at self made curses for an example. There are those that you place on others, like the maledictus dictorum, okay, and let them choose their own fate, their own curse, because of the fact that who else knows you better than yourself, okay, to say, for an example, you placing a physical curse on someone, all right? In this case, let's say, for an example, you allow them to bring on their own curse. Sometimes an individual has accidentally cursed themselves and they don't even know it. And what's interesting here is that I've known a few people who have actually done this. They've created a curse upon themselves and they didn't realize it. And months have gone by, a year has gone by, and all of a sudden it's like ding, 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 that light bulb has come on. JD Temple and Orly Stewart did a video on this a while back, self made curses, and it's interesting because right now I have a sister who's got a lot going on, and now she's gone beyond that, and because she hasn't taken a break, she hasn't taken how should I say this, a vacation from her vacation, so to speak, to just kind of step back and focus on herself because she's so worried about her husband. She's not leaving the hospital, she's not doing anything. So in essence, she's driven herself into madness. So much like Ahura Mazda, the mad god, okay, from Zoroastrianism. And it's ironic that something like this really takes place because it does. It takes you into a lot of different areas of the mind that you previously would not have explored. Okay, for an example, when we look at fear, what is the one thing that motivates an individual greater than anything else? It's fear, right? Fear, that thought of something might happen. Okay, it creates a state of paranoia. Now, paranoia can lead you into areas of the mind that creates distrust in others. It leads you into taking that step back from public life, say doing videos, or and then all of a sudden you'll be attacking other people saying you're not true or you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And then it's, well, now it's going into other areas such as suicidal thoughts or cutting for the sheer pleasure of it to give others life. Okay. For an example, in blood sorcery, there's a thing called bloodletting. Okay, it's a controlled setting where you bleed on an altar or you give an offering to deitas, like say to a demon, or to an angelic being, some kind of god, even, kind of give back to them. This type of thing is in occultism. Okay, this is black magic. Okay, this is demonic sorcery. All right, where we give it as an offering, but we also give it as a gift, okay, to them because they want to experience life again, but it's also a way to feed them and give back to them for coming across great distances to aid you in your workings and to associate with you. So it's kind of like a thank you at the same time as, here, I have a humble gift for you. But then you have those who do it for something completely different. And in a self-made curse, this is what this goes into, is the fact that you're cutting yourself to control pain, your own pain. And it's more of attention seeking. And when you lash out to discuss this with other people, like say, I want you to use my body, and spill my elixir to give you guys life, or to say, for an example, oh, I don't know, make a mockery of something. You're basically going beyond what the gods are trying to do for you and to try to teach you, okay, to do. And you basically moved into your own paranoia and mind setting of nothing. There's not going to be another dawn after the darkness. There's not going to be anything. It's just misery, misery, and pain, and pain, and pain, suffering, to the point where you just simply want to end it. Okay. And I've known a few people that have actually reached this state. I recently had a brother, a traditional Satanist friend. I was friends with him on Facebook for a while, and he's an author. He wrote a book, and we actually met through a fellow traditional Satanist and publisher, a good friend of mine. And this man actually, like I said, he recently committed suicide. So I mean, it was a surprise. So it's much like that guy from Lincoln Park. Suddenly up out of nowhere and just gone, or what I'm saying. So in a sense, this could be made into a self-made curse where you've allowed yourself to get into that unhealthy state of mind, which makes the body sick and you become out of balance. And eventually you're going to go down that road to suicide and other things. Whereas other people really want to they want it in their life, and they'll come to you and ask, how do you do this? How can I do this? And what's the fastest and painless method? And some people, they won't think about it. They'll just simply go, well, what about hemlock, or say for an example, Oriolander or ricin, something, you know, toxic, that can be used. And it's like, well, if they'd actually taken that step back and actually seen where this individual is coming from, explore their mind for a little bit and say, well, why would you want to know about this? you know, experience with it and how far they're willing to take it. And then if they're willing to really do it on themselves or to someone else, then you have to, as a minister, as a clergy, then you have to go to the legal system and say, hey, this person's threatening to do bodily harm to themselves or to someone else. Okay. This is a public thing. And as an ordained minister, according to legal laws, it is your mandate to do that. Outside of that, you follow the minister's oath, which is to remain silent and to keep to yourself what people tell you. Okay. Now, as satanic ministers go, and as pagan and Wiccan traditions go, you don't have to go by the JCI code of ministry in that aspect. In this case, it's more of the fact that you can either use it to your own benefit or you can aid them. It comes down to your own independent nature and what you're willing to do. Now, personally, I've had to call the legal system on two individuals throughout my career as a minister, but it is something that I respect because of the fact that it is their choice to do. It's their life, not mine. But to make somebody aware of it and say, "Hey, this individual's doing this," it's kind of gives them the heads up. Okay, we'll check into it, but we'll keep an eye on them just in case. Okay, kind of like a heads up type thing. Now, as for curses and hexings, I've seen some number one curses off the internet. I wouldn't trust most of them because a lot of them are just fake. But there are a few curses on the internet that actually do work, like the Lucifer's curse, or it's called Lucifer's touch, the 3 nights of hell curse. These ones really do work. You know, um, the curse of darkness and discord, discord and darkness, I believe it's called. I never really got much results with that one. It wasn't until I got into herbalism and started working with effigies that these things started really clicking. Okay. Karma, as I said last night, seems to come into play on a universal level. And it's kind of like, well, you put out nothing but negativity. Guess what? You are going to get negative things back in your life. Okay. It's not like in necromancy or shamanism where you basically keep one foot in the grave and one in reality. Okay. Or one place, one half of you's in the shadow world where the other half is in reality. Satanism, demonolatry, when you learn how to ascend and descend. These are just some things that really play into a part of this. But I thought I'd share some of this because of the fact that when I first got into cursing, hexing, and learning about karma, I didn't really care at the time about my reputation. I used anything and everything at my disposal to eliminate my enemies. Back in the day, it didn't matter if it was psychology, it didn't matter if it was manipulation, deceit, it didn't matter if it was seduction. Okay, these are things that allow you to turn things into your benefit. Use the knowledge to your benefit of an enemy and utilize it to gain victory or dominance upon your enemy. But it wasn't until I started really getting into spiritualism and spiritual warfare that I realized that there's a whole nother side to you. Okay, there's a whole nother side of this. Okay, we're not talking physical ailments. Okay, like the old witches from the witch's hammer. Okay, that is spoken of, like say Remy's, Nicholas Remy's Book of Demonolatry, an account of historical and ancient witchcraft, or that of the discovery of witchcraft. Okay, getting into herbalism, three main powders that were found on witches during the witch trials in the burning times. I've spoken on this in past videos, so I'm not going to get into it, in detail. So the three main colors of these powders were white, amber, and black. Okay. This was just in chapter 1 of Nicholas Remy's book, Demonolatry, which actually was partially copied down with names and all that stuff from different regions of the world that the witch persecutions and trials and burning times took place, and later became a part of the witch's hammer for the church to use, the JCI, to torture and rape and pillage and destroy people's lives. Okay. Now, outside of that, herbalism was also utilized in assassinations. It was utilized through alchemical sequences, but it was also utilized in ascension and descension. And it's something that can also become an addiction as well because of the fact that some people have a tendency to use shrooms when they get into spiritualism, and it you got to remember that there are two types of chemicals in the body. There's that which is natural, occurring that you can tap into and utilize to help you ascend into other planes of existence, such as astral projection, astral planes, going to your altar in the astral planes, communing with demons, angels, the jinn, Ugan, and Loa. Okay. But then you have that false state of reality, which is what drugs do. And that is associated with like shrooms and pot and all that other crap. Okay. Which is why I don't condone them through rituals. I like things that are natural, things that you learn how to do. There are things that will help you to relax. Yes, like catnip tea, 1 pinch per cup will help you to relax. And all you have to do is focus your energy and your chi, your ka, you know, on what you're doing. Doing a mantra and opening up your chakras and kundalini and stuff like that. Working with the void meditations is always good. But cursing when getting into spiritualism is, like I said, different. One of the things I learned to do is to take spiritual warfare seriously. It is one of those things where you don't throw a curse around just for shits and giggles. Okay. When you get into spiritual warfare, there is so many different things, so many doors that open up. Number one, you can speak curses in the spiritual realm to weaken your enemy, to weaken their world, their foothold. Even you corrode their foothold, their positions. You can also wish them personally ill will, such as sickness, death. You can place these things upon them through spiritual ascension. You can use physical things, take the blood or the method, the soul of a person who died. Okay, you can buy their soul from the family. You can even go in and take their soul from the disincarnate into orbs and crystals and utilize it. And if they've died in a very slow, painful way, like say cancer, we've all known and seen people who have died of cancer. Okay, this is kind of like a curse that you place on them by taking that disincarnate spirit and placing all that sickness on that individual so that they die in the same manner. Another form of cursing. Okay. Psychologically speaking, the maledictus totem is a very good way, like I said, because it allows them, your enemy, to dictate their own damnation. You can speak words, writing down a curse physically so somebody can read it, like say the Lucifer's touch, like I said. They'll take it right to heart because people believe in curses so wholeheartedly that it will actually happen. They will terminate themselves. They'll, oh great, now I'm cursed. I'm gonna die, and then within 12 hours they're dead. If you want them to slowly rot in the ground, one of the things you could do is a canning jar spell. Where you take their photo, you take graveyard dirt, and a bunch of other ailments such as rusty nails, sulfur, gopher dust, things that will attract the beings that you want to go after them, to bring them down. Okay? When you deal with the more mundane within spiritual hexes and curses and karma, look no further than what the JCI does. They've mastered it. Even Sumnus Dread would hit that right on the head. You know, even I've seen it. I've through recent events, I've had to actually delve back into it because of the fact that it was one of those things where I had overlooked, and these tactics have been employed against my family. So I've had to deploy countermeasures in that arena. Now, there are methods, like I said, psychology, manipulation, misdirection, creating doubt in your enemy. You can tear their world apart simply by utilizing what's there. If you've been in your enemy's place, separate them through doubt. Use earrings that their wives use. Nothing creates havoc more than a cheating spouse. Look at the Battle of Troy. Most wars have been fought over women, land, power, greed, minerals. Even today, it's the same way. Moreover, it's not about ISIS. Uh, it's not about any terrorist cell. It doesn't take 10 years to squash a little bitty, you know, terrorist cell. No, it doesn't take that much. No, it's more of the fact that it was based off oil. It's based off fuel. The Middle East sits on a lot of fuel, just like in southern Russia. Same exact thing. It's all about women, land, and minerals. That's what the wars have been fought over: territory, property, natural resources. You go into psychological warfare, you use imagery, idolatry. My God is bigger than your God. You look at everything from the Necronomicon to the JCI Bible, the Quran. You go into Sanskrit. You go into all these old doctrines. There's always one being that will force a being into submission. A stronger god, like Marduk to Tiamat, for an example, Michael to Lucifer, Jehovah to Satan, Ahura Mazda to Ahriman. You see what I'm saying here? There's always that imagery of the greater God and the minor God. Okay? The ranking system. But here's the thing. Is that not natural in the state of mankind? No other war has been fought more commonly than that of religion, religious dominance. You look at your governments, it's the same exact thing, controlled by religion. My way or the highway. They've mastered imagery. They've mastered manipulation. They've mastered their philosophy. He's the only way, but yet you can't do it on your own. I don't know about you, but every being I've come into contact with has taught me to be an individual, taught me how to do things. Cursing, hexing, and karma, it plays into effect. It's taken 2,500 years, but people are waking up and seeing the bullshit that Christianity has been spewing. More and more people are leaving the church. They're acquiring more about witchcraft, and they're acquiring more about Satanism and different left-hand path practices. How do I know this? I've been approached by numerous people on social media. Now I know what you're thinking. It could be a ploy, right? Well, part of it is, yes, but a lot of it's curiosity. Think of Schrodinger's cat. Cat's in a box. You put poison in the box. You put some form of gas in the box. How do you know if that cat's alive or dead if you do not open that box? Is that not a curse? You've cursed that cat into Stagnation. Because until you open that box, you won't know if it's dead or alive. Utilizing this technique, this imagery, we can actually look at the JCI. Same thing. They can sit there, all these followers come in and they believe one man, the pastor, the priest, the reverend, the head of the church. And what the bishop says goes. Because the bishop dictates, and that little council dictates what is done in that church. Or churches, because a lot of them these days have become incorporated into a corporate status quo. Okay? So when you take that step back, when you go into a church, you watch the little divisions and adversities taking place. You have the elders that sit, right up at the top. They stick to themselves. You have the elders, the elderly that sit back in their little group. You have the little married folks that, in their 20s and 30s, sometimes, 40s, will go out, hang out, have parties, dine together, chill out, associate at restaurants after church, have coordinated events, stuff like that. And then you have the teenagers, the minors who sit there and do nothing. They have their own variation of what their interpretation of the Bible is and how Christianity should be. Okay. So they've mastered it, that whole image thing. It's damned if you do and damned if you don't. You either do as I tell you or we're going to shun you. Okay. Do as we tell you and you'll go places. That state of false hope, that state of submission, sheephood, living on your knees. And what's interesting to note is is the fact that when you start seeing this and that veil gets pulled away, you realize it comes down to one thing: money. You see, they put so much time and effort into building their temples, their churches, their image, that they don't take into consideration the lies that they've been spewing, because it's lies based on lies, based off lies, based off lies for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And what's interesting to note is that when people start seeing their bullshit, that's when they start waking up and asking questions. You can call it the time of Aquarius, if you wish. The time where everybody's questioning. But the curse is this: you want to live by that code, you want to live by that mandate. That's fine. But don't live with your head in the proverbial sandbox, because you will be made the fool. Look at Bobby Bledsoe for an example. This man made a personal attack upon me, and within 2 years, he had sunk in $1.5 million into a sanctuary to try to create his church through City Reach. It was money that became worthless. He lost his church through the place being condemned, unfit for human habitation. He was banned from having any type of ministry in this region of the state. He lost all his followers, and he lost the support of the other churches. He lost his wife, his newborn daughter, all because he chose to make it personal. I cursed his property, and I cursed him physically, verbally, spiritually. When you get into spiritual warfare, this is something that is very potent, and it can affect you on so many different levels. It's not it's not about physical, it's not about verbal, it's not about spiritual. It's all of the above. I've always said that there are three main factors in any given ritual working. There's three wills. There's your will, the will of the gods, and then there's the universal will. The gods will overrides your will as the practitioner. But then the universal will, if the universe doesn't want it, if that's against you, you're fucked. You're fucked, literally. It goes against you. Okay? In most cases, the practitioner can utilize what they learn through hexcraft, through cursing, through spiritual warfare, seals of wardings, cloaking, um, reversal magics, you know, traps and reversals and stuff like that, curses that can affect the attacker. You know, someone who's been well rounded in the magical community can do this stuff very, very easily. You can create your own runes, your own seals. You know, a lot of good books discuss how to do seals and to combine them, such as let's go with Raymond Buckland's book, The Complete Book of Witchcraft. It's a big blue book. You know, the Solitary Witchcraft for the New Generation Witch by Silver Ravenwolf. Okay, these two books right there um, really break down runes. They tell you what they're about and what they can do, but they only give this much information when in fact there's this much information. Okay. Frager UD has a book called Practical Sigil Magic. I'm looking at it right over there on my bookshelf. Um, it teaches you how to create a sigil. It teaches you how to create runes, to write runes, to use alphabets, such as the Hellgate system or the Enochian system, perhaps even the Anglo-Saxon, the Theban alphabets, which can be used in a form of spiritual warfare. It could be used in curses, hexes. It could be used in um, ritual settings, such as writing on a parchment that has the photo of your enemy, the name and address of your enemy. And you can literally just put all this stuff together and put it into a jar, fill it with a corrosive agent, and bury it in your own private graveyard. You can bury it in a cemetery. Nobody's going to fuck with it. Well, at least until they move the cemetery. Um, you can even put them on rock um, cliffs, say, for an example, down in Mexico, for an example, where black magic seems to thrive a lot in the Mexican city. There's locations and regions where black magic's been reported to have been performed. And they found a lot of canning jars. They found a lot of things for curses, hexings, and blessings, and effigies that have been tied together with certain things. Cows' tongues melted on the cover of a canning jar, you know, half full of corrosive acids like vinegar and you know, for an example, something that has acid in it that eats away at the bones. You know, you're gonna have bones, you're gonna have wings, you're gonna have sulfur and all this other stuff that's involved in cursing an individual. You know, there's a lot of different methods to it. There's a lot of different systems out there that have their own techniques. You know, even hell, even the Mazajira Cabal system, you know, through for example, profane seals put out by Semis Dreadwood. The later half of that book, holy fuck, talk about some powerful workings. Seals and sigils that he's put in there just on, think about it, I have it right here. Me, I was going through this earlier today because I was doing some research on the Witches of the Depths. Let me go into the back here. All right. For example, starting on page 366 is the protections, the wardings, the adjurations, cloaking. And then the next one is the baptism of hellfire. That one was very, very interesting for a ritual. But you can also go into the Veil of Plagues, the Scepter of the Black Gods, the Essence of Agony, the Crown of Beguiling, the Wings of the Fallen, the Activist's Halo, the Shadow Spirit, Shroud of the Lick. And you can go even further into the book and you end up with things like their planet, seals, stuff like that. And you go even further back and you got the soul worm, which is associated with voodoo and hoodooism and a lot of these African-based traditions. But it goes beyond that. I mean, it goes into shamanism, the old shamans, the old necromancers, stuff like that. And you have the armor of death, and you got the poisoned well of life, the shroud of the undead, the blood Z soul of fire. There's so many different things in this one book, that is interesting. Even in hoodooism, there's a book of curses that you can find on Amazon and eBay that is very, very interesting because of the fact that a lot of their techniques deals with herbalism, but also dealing with the JCI, names of power, which come from the Kabbalah, the Hermetic system, which is associated also with the Clavicle of Solomon, the Constitution of Pope Honorius, the Grand Grimoire and stuff like that, and dealing with the names of power, calling on the JCI gods' names to dominate and threaten a demon, which you don't need to do. These beings are more than willing to aid you. The term demon is nothing more than another term for guardian and protector. These beings are teachers, guides, and educators. They're muses. They're beings who are willing to inspire you and to better you. Not that they have to, but it's more of the fact that they want to. They want to make you better. They want you to grow. So, I mean, when it comes to cursing, hexing, there's so many different things that you can do. So many different methods. Okay. Now, as for karma is going to play a role into just about everything. You probably noticed in your own life that things tend to go a certain way. Let's say, for an example, let's go with the law of three from pagan and Wiccan practices. Three things go right. All of a sudden, you got three things going wrong. Okay. You probably had that Murphy's Law type things come into play where all of a sudden it's like things just start going wrong. It's like three things. Bam, 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 bam. Okay. And all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I'm going to cleanse myself. I'm going to bring myself back into alignment. I'm going to cleanse my aura and all that stuff in my house. And then I'm going to begin again. It's kind of like pressing that reset button. But when dealing with all three put together, you really want to get into understanding spiritual warfare and the methods of offensive and defensive tactics, down to the sentinels and the agents that are employed, the tactics, because through the government, through your social standings, associations, through religious purposes, spiritualism, this plays a huge, huge part in it. And I would recommend that you look up some of Stridwood's videos on spiritual warfare. This man hits the head with the hammer of the nail with a hammer quite well. Um, when you start paying attention to these details and you start observing things in your own life, you're going to see exactly what's going on. So you really don't have to go around cursing somebody for shits and giggles unless they've really, really deserve it and are not going to learn from their own mistakes and their own stupidity. Save those curses and that breath for someone who really deserves it. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to study things like poisons, venoms, hurt, different methods and techniques of cursing and hexing. It's all right to do that stuff. You don't have to sit there and stick to one tradition, form or practice of magic. Go into all of them. In fact, I encourage it. All right. Learn for yourself, not for others. Now, I hope this has been an, an educational experience for you. I hope it's been intellectual. Hope it's been enlightening, and I hope it's cleared up a lot of misconceptions. But also, I hope that it's answered a lot of questions that has come to you or things that are happening in your own lives. If you wish to get in touch with me, you can do so here, or you can get in touch with me through Facebook and Messenger. All right. With that said, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time, I'm out.